Hey guys, so I'm going to pick up with Nightbooks by J.A. White, and this is going to be Chapter 7, The Girl Who Followed a Unicorn. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'm going to do my coffee cheers. This is one of my favorite cups. We got it in London at the British Museum, and it's kind of fun to look at all the hieroglyphics in there. All right, here we go. Cheers. Let us begin. The Girl Who Followed a Unicorn. Alex woke up early the next morning. He found some clean clothes about his own size hanging in the closet and knocked on Yasmin's door. No one answered. Alex figured that she had already passed through the coat closet door and started her work for the day. What is Natasha making her do? Alex wondered, remembering the scratches along Yasmin's arms, her dirt-stained face. Something messy for sure. Digging holes? Burying the bodies of Natasha's victims? The girl was so confusing. She seemed set on disliking him, but if she hadn't helped Alex that first night, he'd probably be dead. She's not bad like Natasha, Alex thought. She's just scared, like me. He went into the kitchen to grab some breakfast and saw Lenore lying on the counter. She looked away, refusing to acknowledge his presence. Sorry about yesterday, Alex said. I just wanted the library to myself. If I had known that Natasha was going to hurt you, I wouldn't have said anything. Lenore didn't open her eyes. Does she even understand what I'm saying? He knew that Lenore could somehow communicate with Natasha, but maybe that was a witch thing. Just because she can turn herself invisible doesn't mean she understands English. Still, he wanted to make it up to her somehow, and since a verbal apology wasn't doing the trick, he grabbed a handful of Fruit Loops and spread them on the counter next to her. Here, he said. Maybe this will make you feel... Lenore opened her eyes and hissed. Alex saw claws beginning to extend from her paw and jerked his hand backwards, but he wasn't nearly fast enough. An orange streak blurred in his direction. Instead of the expected pain, however, Alex felt only a weak patter against his chest. He looked down in confusion and saw Fruit Loops falling to the floor. Lenore had thrown them. Alex examined her paw more carefully and saw that what he had first mistaken for claws were actually 4 tiny fingers and a thumb, covered by a thin layer of black fur. As he watched, these fingers quickly retracted into her paw. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? Alex asked, stunned. Lenore gave a long, toothy yawn and turned her back to him completely. Wow, so this cat is pretty special. This morning I was playing with my cat. I have a black cat and a white cat, and he warned me by saying meow, quit petting me, but I didn't listen, so I got a little scratch on there. So, oh my goodness, that'd be so scary though if they were little fingers. Alex retrieved his newest nightbook, the only one with any blank pages left. Then he used the bone key that Yasmin had left on the dining room table to enter the library. He spread the nightbook across the desk and laid a pencil next to it. There, he said, taking stock. That looks convincing. Alex had no intention of actually trying to write a story, but now if Natasha entered the library unannounced, at least he could look like he had been working. For the time being, he would just claim that his old stories were actually new ones. I haven't written many in this nightbook yet, Alex thought, but there has to be over 50 stories between the 2 older ones. If all I'm doing is reading 1 story a night, I have plenty of time. Right now it's more important to learn as much about the apartment as possible so I can figure out a way to escape. Alex had always relied on books to be his teachers. Hoping that things would be no different here, he set out to explore the library. Yasmin said these were all story collections, he thought, but what if she was wrong? What if there's something here I can use? He scanned the titles. The Black Horseshoe and Other Tales of Equine Horror. Stories scratched beneath a coffin lid. 13 Dead Ends. Alex would have loved to read them all, but other than entertainment value, he didn't think they would be of much use. Then again, what exactly was he looking for? A spell book could be helpful, he thought, or even better, one of those fake books that unlocks a secret passageway leading out of this place. Alex didn't see anything like that. All he saw were storybooks. As he made his way up the winding staircase, the books grew older, the dust jackets giving way to leather bindings cracked with age. English faded from the spines, gradually replaced by what Alex thought was German. Der Dunkel Wald, he read hesitantly, tripping over the foreign words. Das Buch der verlorenen Kinder. With no other way to tell what kind of books these were, Alex flipped through one at random, his gaze lingering on several woodcuts, a beautiful woman sleeping in a casket made of glass, a grotesque imp dancing in delight around a campfire, an old crone leading a boy and girl into a house made of candy. Fairy tales, Alex thought, closing the book. The original scary stories. By the time he finally reached the top of the tower, Alex was panting from exertion. He stretched his hand into the air and grazed the stone ceiling with the tips of his fingers. They were as solid as expected. Alex hadn't really believed that there would be an exit at the top of the staircase, but he was disappointed nonetheless. Now what? He asked. The titles were clearly a dead end. Yet Alex, who believed that libraries possessed their own sort of magic, still believed that there was something important to be learned here. I need to search the books themselves, he thought. At the very least, I can see what type of story Natasha likes. That could be helpful, if I ever do have to write some new ones. Alex quickly retraced his path, a little bit easier than going up, but not by much, and grabbed the first 5 books off the lowest shelf. There were other titles that seemed more interesting, but Alex figured the best way to perform a thorough search was to start at the beginning and methodically work his way upward. He sat down at his writing desk and tucked 4 of the books beneath his chair, where they would remain hidden if he had any unexpected visitors. Stay focused, he warned himself, knowing that once he started recording, once he started reading, he might get distracted and forget the main purpose of his search. Alex opened the first book. It was a volume dedicated to ghost stories. Alex tried to skim. He really did. But every so often a turn of phrase would bait his eye, and he would forget himself for several pages before breaking through the surface again and remembering his task. The next book, a collection of poorly written urban legends, wasn't nearly as interesting. Alex was able to give it a cursory examination in less than 10 minutes. He set it at the bottom of the pile and placed the third book on the table, a quartet of creepy novellas titled Handprints on the window. It was long, really long. Alex braced himself with a single elbow. Excuse me. Oh my goodness, my allergies have been so bad lately. We're trying to have the windows open for fresh air and sunlight, but it keeps making me cough. Alex braced himself with a single elbow and flipped through the pages, for the first time feeling the enormity of his task. Am I wasting my time with this, he wondered. Maybe I should pull each book off the shelf and check them to see if there's something behind them. Lost in his doubts, it took Alex an extra beat to realize that there was something different about this book. When he finally saw it, he had to flip back a couple pages to where the change first began. There was writing in the margins. Words huddled together in small groups. They'd been printed with a pencil. Here and there, Alex could even see erasure marks where the writer had made a correction. The penmanship wasn't the neatest, but it was legible enough. It looks like it was written by a kid, Alex thought. Maybe someone my age. He started to read. So I want to show you this part of the book because it's so neat how J.A. White did it. So we've got some text. Let me get it the right angle for you. Okay. So you've got your text in the middle, and then all along the sides are little things added. And it looks like you're actually seeing the book that he's reading. So pretty cool on there. I hope you could see that. So I'm just going to read kind of in the order that it is. But the neat thing about reading this book yourself, if you get a chance to go back and do it, is you can choose what order you want to read it. He started to read. Shh, I told the witch I'm in here picking tonight's story for her, but I want to write some things down first. I don't have any paper, so I'm going to use these books. Different books each time, so the witch don't find out. If she does, I'll be in big trouble. How I got here was I was playing in the park and I saw a unicorn walk into this apartment building. I know unicorns aren't real. I'm not stupid. But I've always loved unicorns, so I followed it anyway. Just in case, it went into the elevator, which is funny. And I took the stairs and saw it walk into this apartment. I knocked on the door and the witch who lives there trapped me inside. And so here I am. I know Mom and Dad will find me very soon. All I have to do is just wait and do what the witch tells me to do. She won't hurt me. I am a good girl. She is mean, I know, but I think she's lonely too. Otherwise, why does she want someone to read her a story every night? Plus, she can do magic, which I think is so cool. Also, her cat can turn invisible. And also, I think there were other kids here, but they are not here anymore, so the witch must have let them go. And if I am a good girl, she will. And then, that's all that's the things written on the side of that page from what she said. And now I'm going to read you what the main text of it says, kind of like what the book he's looking at is. Raymond was awoken in the middle of the night by scratching noises on the other side of his bedroom ceiling. He lay in bed and listened carefully. Something scampered from one side of the ceiling to the other, a trail of sound. Mouse, Raymond muttered in disgust. He had lived alone in the old farmhouse for over 60 years, and it wasn't the first time a rodent had tried to use his attic for a winter home. Well, I'm up now, he thought. Might as well get some traps up there before I have an infestation on my hands. He dressed quickly and started a pot of coffee. The scratching noise continued, louder than before. Raymond reassessed his earlier opinion. Could it be a squirrel, he thought? Maybe even a raccoon. He pulled down the attic stairs and climbed them carefully, his arthritic knees barking in protest. Sunrise was still a few hours away, and the attic was cold and dark. Raymond ducked his head beneath the low ceiling and shone a flashlight to the left and right where the spaces between the joists remained exposed. He was looking for rips in the insulation, some kind of sign that he had an unwelcome guest. Instead, he found a strange lump at the size of a softball. "What is that?" he asked. Raymond slowly got to his knees and parted the fiberglass insulation with his shirt sleeves, revealing a silver opal-shaped object speckled with red dots. An egg, Raymond thought, struggling to come to terms with the sheer strangeness of it. Some kind of bird get in here, maybe? He swung his flashlight over the rest of the insulation and saw similar lumps evenly spaced throughout the attic. A dozen, maybe 2. The silver egg shook. Raymond fell backwards in surprise, his hand connecting with something warm and slimy on the floor. It slithered between his fingers and underneath the sleeve of his shirt, moving fast. So that's the text that was on the book page that I showed you there. And so it's going to hop to the next page. The writing stopped mid-sentence. Alex could imagine the girl hearing footsteps in the distance and slipping the book back onto the shelf. He flipped through the rest of the pages, but there was nothing more. Alex stared down at the book, trying to process all that he had learned. A sheen of cold sweat gathered at the nape of his neck. Could Yasmin have written this? He wondered, and quickly rejected the possibility. It didn't sound like her at all, and Yasmin was far too frightened of the witch to deface one of her precious storybooks. It must have been another prisoner, before me and Yasmin. Alex stared up at the library. I have to keep searching and see if she wrote more in a different book. She might have learned something important. She might have escaped. Before Alex could get out of his seat, however, he heard the familiar clicking sound of a bone key turning in the lock. He slipped the book of novellas beneath his desk and grabbed a pencil, trying to look as though he had been dutifully at work the entire time. The door opened. All right, so we're on to chapter 8, and it's titled Beautiful Darkness. "Hey," Yasmin said, stepping into the room. "Hey," Alex said, as naturally as possible. Yasmin's goggles hung around her neck. There was fresh scratches on her arm. Her apron was splattered with some yellow, viscous substance. She shook the dirt out of her hair and slipped the Met's cap on her head. "Dinner will be ready in like an hour," she said, "so you should finish up whatever you're doing." "Thanks," Alex said. "Okay, then." She turned around as if to leave, and then turned back. "That story you read last night? It didn't suck." Alex looked down at the desk so Yasmin didn't see the blush spreading across his face. "You really think so?" he asked. She gave him a strange look. "This can't be the first time someone said you're a good writer. Your English teacher must love you." "Not exactly," Alex said. "I do okay in school with essays and stuff, but it's not the same. I've never shared my Nightbook stories before." "Is it like you said yesterday?" Yasmin asked. "You're afraid people will think you're weird?" He nodded. "Well, you don't have to worry about that happening with me," Yasmin said. "I already think you're weird. You can't make it any worse." "Thanks," Alex said, unable to tell from her stone-faced expression if she was joking or not. Maybe that's just the way he is, he thought. This might be an attempt to befriend me. If so, Alex couldn't mess it up. He needed Yasmin's help if he wanted to escape the apartment. Unfortunately, the girl was already turning to go. To keep the conversation alive, Alex asked the first question that popped into his head. "Did you live here in the building?" "Before." Yasmin gave a quick shake of her head. Then how did you get here? Alex asked. I don't like to talk about it, okay? She left the library and headed towards the kitchen. That's cool, Alex said. He held the door open as he called after her. I was just curious how Natasha tricked you into coming inside. With me, it was a scary movie. Yasmin stopped and looked back over one shoulder. What does that even mean? She asked. I heard it playing behind the apartment door, Alex said. It called to me. I couldn't stop myself from knocking. A movie? She asked in disbelief. That's how Natasha got you? It wasn't my fault, Alex said, growing angry. Magic, remember? It brainwashed me. Whatever. Well, how did you get trapped then? Alex asked. He looked at her cap and scoffed. Let me guess. You heard the Mets playing on TV, ninth inning, and you just couldn't help yourself? Her expression grew cold. You want to know what happened? She asked, stepping forward. Fine. My friend Amina lives in this apartment building on the 12th floor. Only when I came to see her that Saturday, the elevator stopped on the 4th. Weird, but no big deal, right? I get off the elevator thinking I'll just take the stairs, when I smell the most amazing thing. Kusa Mishi. Yasmin registered Alex's confused look and added, That's rice and lamb, or chickpeas if you're a vegetarian like me, all mashed together inside squash, cooked with lemon juice, mint, and a ton of garlic. Sounds delicious, Alex said, stomach grumbling. It is, replied Yasmin. Her voice softened. My Sito, Grandma, and I used to make it together. As soon as I smelled it, I ran down the hallway, no longer thinking straight. I was convinced that if I knocked on the door to apartment 4E, Sito would answer. Yasmin looked away. She didn't, of course. How could she? My Sito's been dead for over a year. But for that one moment, I was positive that she had been returned to me. And then finding out it was all a trick? It was like losing her all over again. For a few moments, Alex didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, he finally managed. Yasmin wiped away the tears that had begun to fall from her eyes. So what was the movie? She asked. What? The one you heard through the apartment door. Oh, Alex said, wishing that he had never brought it up in the first place. Night of the Living Dead? Yasmin shrugged her shoulders. Never heard of it. She turned and left. This time, she didn't look back. After dinner, Natasha set up the oil diffuser and settled into her chair. Alex took his place next to her. Despite everything, he was excited to read the story he had picked out. Natasha's right, he thought. I do love an appreciative audience. You able to work better without that disgusting furball in the room? She asked. Yes, Alex said. Thank you. This can be a good home for you, storyteller, Natasha said, as Yasmin took her place on the love seat and primly folded her hands in her lap. A place where you can be yourself. I was thinking about what you told me yesterday, how you wanted to sacrifice your poor little Nightbook so you could be as boring as other children your age. I'm curious about something. Being different isn't anything new for you, is it? Truly, you've been blessed with these dark thoughts your entire life. She leaned forward and clasped her hands beneath her chin. So why the sudden change of heart? What happened? Alex almost told her, but his storytelling instincts again warned him that it would be best to keep the real story of the Nightbooks to himself. The witch wouldn't hurt him, because if she did, she'd never find out the truth. Just like Scheherazade, he thought. Nothing specific happened, Alex said. It was just time for a change. Is that so? Asked Natasha. She smirked, clearly seeing through his lie, but allowing it to pass for now. The meaning in her haughty expression was clear. You'll tell me everything. It's not like you're going anywhere. I left you fresh paper in the library, she said, eyeing the Nightbook in his hand. Why are you still using that old thing? Just used to it, I guess, Alex said. Give it here. She flicked her wrist and the book flew into her hands. Alex jumped in surprise and Natasha cackled heartily. That was a good spell, no? Amazing, Alex said, when it was clear that she was waiting for a response. Compared to creating magical rooms that bent the laws of reality, making a book fly into your hand was pretty small potatoes. Nevertheless, Natasha seemed immensely impressed with herself. Apparently Alex wasn't the only one who enjoyed an audience. She turned the Nightbook in her hands. What happened here? She asked, examining the outside of the book. The back and front covers had peeled away in several sections, exposing raw strips of white. Only a rubber band kept the loose pages from slipping away. You have a temper tantrum when writing wasn't going your way? Alex hesitated, not wanting to tell Natasha any more about himself than necessary. When her eyes narrowed, however, he began to talk. That started as my writing journal when I was in 4th grade, he said. My teacher told us to cover it with pictures of things we liked, so the journals would be more personalized. I went online and printed out all my favorite things. Zombies, monsters, killer dolls. It was really hard to fit them all in the notebook, but I worked at it, cutting each picture exactly right so they all fit together like a puzzle. Took me the entire weekend, but it was worth it. I couldn't wait to start writing. The smile that had blossomed on Alex's face suddenly faded. And then I brought it to school. I saw how different mine was from everyone else's. They'd all printed out pictures of athletes, cute animals, boy bands, photos of friends and family. We had to leave the notebooks out on our desk that first day, like a museum, and the other kids kept staring at mine and giving me weird looks. I took the journal home that night and tore all the pictures off. It became my first nightbook. Oh my gosh. So have you ever had anything like that where you worked really hard on something and then when you go to share it, you realize what you did is really different? Oh, that's so difficult. Natasha stared at him for a long time and sighed deeply. I am all kinds of mystified by you, boy, she said. The beautiful darkness that dances through your brain is a cause for celebration, and yet for some strange reason you run from it. Why is that? I just want to be like everyone else, Alex said. Natasha laughed. What makes you think you have a choice? She asked. She handed him the nightbook and pressed a button on the oil diffuser. The air shimmered as the misting room came into being. You're not like everyone else, and there's nothing you can do about it. We are what we are. These stories, they're just the real you bubbling to the surface, weird and dark and twisted. Alex felt his face growing warm. Natasha was saying everything he had always feared. She's right, he thought. There's darkness running through me. Why else would I have all these terrible ideas in my... Oh, goodness, Natasha said, her face cloaked by blue mist. Now you're all sad and misty-eyed. Hey, you know what always cheers me up? A story. So get to it. All right, so we're going to read one of his scary stories, and just a reminder that it's typed in this really neat kind of handwriting font that's on there, and it's called The Shape in the Mirror. Katie loved vampires. She had read all the books and watched all the movies. She knew all the rules. A vampire couldn't enter a house without being invited first. They didn't cast a reflection. You became a vampire by getting bitten or drinking vampire blood. Sometimes Katie thought it would be cool to be a vampire. She made the mistake of telling this to some kids at lunch. They decided that Katie was weird and started to bully her. It spread like wildfire throughout the school. It got so bad that Katie and her family had to move to a different town. Their new house wasn't as nice as their old house. There was a musty smell that wouldn't go away no matter how many times her parents scrubbed the floors. Even weirder, the former occupants had abandoned some of their furniture as though they had left in a hurry. An old sofa, several bookcases, the mirror in Katie's room. It was really old, with strange symbols carved into the wooden frame. Katie's dad offered to move it to the basement, but Katie told him no. She liked creepy things. The next morning, Katie saw something unusual. Her room was on the first floor, and the way the mirror was turned, you could look into it and see through her bedroom window all the way to the house across the street. Behind her reflection, she saw a dark shape in her neighbor's front yard. Katie turned around and peeked through her window, thinking that it must be a dog or something. The front lawn was empty. When Katie looked back in the mirror, however, she could see the shape again. In fact, she thought it had gotten a little closer. She checked again. Through the window. No shape. In the mirror. Shape. It was impossible. Katie called her big brother to show him, but the shape had completely vanished. Her brother shook his head and called her a freakazoid like he always did. He missed his friends and blamed Katie for the sudden move. The shape didn't appear for 3 more days. When it finally returned, there was no doubt that it had gotten closer. Instead of sitting on her neighbor's front lawn, the shape had crossed the middle of the street. Katie still couldn't tell what it was. The reflection was blurry, as though that part of the mirror was smudged. She thought it might have been some kind of animal. Katie didn't see the shape for a very long time after that. Eventually she figured that it had just been a figment of her imagination. But then she looked in the mirror one night and saw the shape peeking through her window. She could see it clearly now. It had bat-like wings folded around its body, like a black robe, and eyes as red as blood. A single claw reached up and scratched the glass. Katie covered the mirror with a blanket. She told her parents what she had seen. They exchanged a worried glance and said they would get rid of the mirror first thing in the morning. Her father told Katie to sleep in the guest room. She was trying to do just that when her brother walked in. He said he had overheard their parents talking. They didn't believe there really was a shape in the mirror. They thought Katie was crazy, and tomorrow some men in white coats were coming to take her away forever. Katie decided that there was only one way to prove that she was telling the truth, so her parents didn't send her away. When she was sure that everyone was asleep, she snuck up to her room and pulled the blanket off the mirror. The shape was standing right behind her reflection. Its ancient, scrunched-up face was covered by a thin layer of fur. It reached down and wrapped its long talons around mirror Katie. Then it unfurled its massive wings and rose out of sight, taking the reflection with it. Katie stared into the mirror. She saw nothing but the empty room behind her. The shape was gone. Her reflection was gone. She fainted. Katie woke up the next morning, hating sunlight. By nighttime, 2 long fangs had punched through her upper gums. It turned out that she wasn't such a vampire expert after all. She'd always thought that people lost their reflection after they became vampires. Now she knew it was the other way around. First your reflection was stolen, then the changes began. Her stomach rumbled. Katie crept down the hallway to her brother's bedroom. He was asleep. His head was turned away from her, exposing his bare neck. She entered his room and closed the door behind her. Ooh, that is such a scary story. Oh my goodness. Alex finished reading just as the oil diffuser cycle came to an end. Blue mist disappeared into the air, and the magical walls vanished. "Your story is all wrong," Natasha said. Alex's cheeks burned. "What do you mean?" he asked, unable to meet her eyes. This was part of the reason why he never shared his stories with anyone else. The slightest criticism was a hornet sting. "The girl, she turns into a vampire at the end, right?" "Right. But that can't be. She never gets bitten by one." "That's the whole idea," Alex said, hating the defensive tone in his voice. "I wanted to do something different, so I made the mirror creature turn her into a vampire by taking her reflection." "But that's not how it works," Natasha said in a petulant tone. "I'm surprised at you, storyteller. I thought you knew better than that." Alex considered arguing, but he could see that it wouldn't do any good. Natasha would never understand that he was trying to do something creative. In her mind, the story had been simply inaccurate. "Sorry," Alex said. "Apology accepted," replied Natasha, and she smiled smugly, like a know-it-all who had just proved the teacher wrong. "Fortunately for you, I'm a witch, which makes me an expert in these matters. I'll be sure to let you know if you get any other details wrong in the future." "Can't wait," Alex muttered under his breath. Natasha stood up and pressed her ear against the wall. After a few moments, she nodded with satisfaction. "Good news," she said. "Your story might not have made any sense, but it still gets the job done." Alex's face flushed, this time with anger instead of embarrassment. He was tired of hearing his writing criticized. "What do you mean, got the job done?" he snapped, ignoring Yasmin's look of warning. "What are you even listening to?" Natasha gave him an appraising look. "One of those, are you?" she asked, rubbing her hands together. "Curious type. Gotta know what makes the clock tick. The rainfall. Not so fond of the characteristic Alex leads to trouble." Alex swallowed nervously as Natasha took a step closer to him. "Sorry," he said. "I just thought it might make a good story, you know. Noises in the wall, creepy stuff." "Always the little author," Natasha said, though it was clear by the look on her face that she didn't believe him. "Sure, you're sure not curious about the apartment itself. Maybe you think you could figure out a way to escape, if only you knew its secrets." "No," Alex said. "It's not like that at—" Natasha snapped her fingers in his face. Alex flinched, expecting a spell, but she just wanted him to stop talking. "Since you're being so forthcoming with me," Natasha said, spitting out the word forthcoming in a way that implied its opposite, "I'll do the same for you. The dark magic that keeps this apartment up and running is very old, and not quite what it used to be. Sometimes things shift out of alignment and grind together, like a car that's been driven too many miles. When that happens, the walls shake. Cracks appear." Alex nodded, remembering the first day in the apartment, how he thought he was in the middle of an earthquake. "The thing about dark magic, though, it thrives on nightmares," Natasha said. "When you read it a scary story, you soothe its aches and pains, and then it can reset easy again, at least for a little while." Alex watched Natasha carefully as she spoke. The smirk on her face made it clear that she was keeping something from him, and that she wanted him to know that she was keeping something from him. She was teasing him with half-truths. "Are you saying the apartment is alive?" Alex asked. Natasha snorted with laughter. Now that's a crazy idea, she said. Maybe you can write a story about it. All right, I'm going to stop there. I hope you liked it, and those of you that stuck with me, I hope it's not too scary, but a fun story. I'd be curious to know which of Alex's stories he tells you enjoy the most. Like, what do you think is his most creative one? So feel free to message me, let me know what you think, or you could leave a comment. I'm going to post this in a Google Classroom, so comment on that. I hope you guys are well, and I hope you're enjoying your Saturday, so I'll see you guys later. Bye.